Good morning, everyone. I'm Eunice Reesberg, the Northeast District Consultant for the State Library, and I'm happy to be here this morning to introduce India Johnson. India has been part of the Waterloo and Cedar Falls, Iowa area for the past 20 years. She graduated from the University of Iowa, receiving a degree in Asian Studies with an emphasis in Chinese language. She's working towards her Master's in Library Science from the University of Iowa, expecting to graduate in fall of 2023. She's worked over 15 years at the Waterloo Public Library with the title of Library Assistant. She has experience in circulation, reference, and program development. I should also mention dodging Eunice's walking really fast in the hallways. Anyway, she considers herself a pizza connoisseur that loves spending time with her family and traveling to new experiences. Yes. The Waterloo Public Library has participated in past International Games Weeks by offering organized programming for patrons of all ages. In 2019 and 2021, they expanded its IGW offerings to include a two-day event at a nearby community college that focused on introducing English language learners of all ability levels to board and card games. India is here today to tell us all about it. Take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eunice. I miss seeing you walk up and down the, the hallway. So yes, so everything that Eunice said is correct. My name is India Johnson. I've been at the Waterloo Public Library for, I guess, now over 15 years. And one program that I have loved and engaged in had been International Game Day to a week. And that's why my presentation from day to a week. When I first started with International Game Day to a week, it was a day, and now it's become a week. Let me see. So as she said, my presentation is the collaboration with English language learners at Hawkeye Community College and the Waterloo Public Library. Hawkeye Community College has a satellite site that's literally around the corner from our library. And so it seemed like a easy collaboration to work with this community. In my past life, I did work with English language learners here at Hawkeye and abroad. And so I found it to be a really easy collab to be able to do, which will be one of the takeaways. Like when you have somebody who is passionate about an idea, it will definitely show. And so this was a nice collaboration to be able to do with Hawkeye and the library. So my first question to you, and you guys can put this in the chat, is what was one board game or card game that you played, and what was the attraction about it? And so, for example, one game that I played was Uno as a kid, though it has taken different forms over the years. Uno is one game that's pretty safe and really fun that I grew up playing. I didn't actually take out the sheet of paper and know the rules of it. It was just kind of taught to me over by my family and friends. And so if you could put in the chat, let me know a board game or a game that you grew up playing and what was the attraction to it. I'll just give you
responses are flying in. Can you see the chat, India?
I cannot.
Okay. Oh, okay, so right. Mastermind, Old Maid, Chutes and Ladders, Canasta, Gin Rummy, Trivial Pursuit, Uno, with an exclamation point, King's Corners, Dominoes, Spades, Kings in the Corner, Pit, again, Uno and Chinese Checkers, Rummy Cube, Clue, wow. And they keep coming.
Okay, that is fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Did anybody say why? What was the attraction that they were kind of a repetitive?
Okay, sorry. It had fun and interesting cards for Old Maid. Mastermind required logic. Mm-hmm. Canasta was a great family time game.
Yep.
Somebody played Gin Rummy with their grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
There were lots of things like that. Also King's Corners, Domino with the family.
Yep.
Pit was a favorite because it was loud and fast moving.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you for the answer. I appreciate that. And everything that you said, I totally agree. That was my initial idea when I brought this idea to Hawkeye. It was a great way to be able to engage. And I also thought about the type of games that would be able to play, especially if you are limited on English. And so, again, thank you for those answers. So this is kind of where board games were kind of birthed. So let me give you some background. International Game Day was actually started as National Game Day back in 2007, and then it grew into International Week. And so the initial idea with the National Game Day was to set a world record for the number of people playing the same game at the same time at libraries all across the world. And so they switched it to International Game Day in 2012, and then it became a week in 2027 or 27. And so again, the focus was more around libraries, all engaged, being able to do this. And so my first event for International Game Day was 2016. And so up till 2019, it was pretty much exclusively in our library. And so the games consist of chess. At the time, Minecraft and Roblox was huge. I engaged a lot of elementary students when they had a day off at school. And so we would just have about 30 computers available in one room and just had elementary kids playing Roblox and Minecraft. So that was great. But the idea was to engage and bring games to the table. Board games, of course, were brought to the table also during the week. And so it was just interesting to be able to do that. We had a lot of board games in our facility that were not being used. And so that was kind of, when you go to the basement, you find things that are on the shelf. It's like, oh, dust them off, bring them back up to life. And that's where the board games came in. So board games to the table with the English language learners pretty much came from a conversation. There was a woman who came into the library who was using our maker space, and English was not her first language. And she was like, is there any place where you can go to a space where you can play games, but also learn English? And I was like, that's a great idea. So how can we make that happen? So I knew she was also a student at the English language learner program at Hawkeye down the street. So that was pretty much the kicker right there. So I reached out to one of the coordinators for their English language program and just brought the idea to the table. What do you think? And so they typically have classes in the morning, 2 or 3 sessions, and then they have classes at night for students, adult students, to learn English language, to learn English. And so the coordinator was all on board about it. So we actually went from the public library into their space. We brought our staff and brought the board games to them and played. So some of the reasons, for me, it was to provide practice for conversation of English, pretty easy, making a connection with a segment of the community who don't often use the library. And so this was pretty huge for me. I'm pretty much a big advocate to make sure that we go out to a public that we typically don't tap into. It's so easy to be able to sit behind a desk and allow the patrons to come to us, our customers to come to us, but sometimes we have to step out and go out to those customers that we don't always see in our library. And so I knew that segment of the population, those who oftentimes don't speak English or not the strongest in English, they may not come to the library, or they don't really reach out to all the services that we have. And so this was a great way to connect with the population that typically does not come to our libraries, make them aware of our library services beyond just books. And so that was a big takeaway for me too. I'm here talking to you. Do you know that we have notary services? Do you know that you can scan at our library? Do you know A, B, and C? And so letting students be aware of the library services that we have, again, while we're playing a game. And again, games are less intimidating and they're easy and approachable, and they're fun. It makes it just an easy conversation. Think about when you were playing a game with Granny or your family. It just makes a lot of discussion and talk a lot more easier when you have something that you have in front of you to be able to engage with one another. So my next question is, what what's one game that made it a little bit easier for you to teach? Like if you're teaching somebody, what was one game that was easy to teach? So you can also put that in the chat too. So what is one game that is easy to teach someone to play?
Okay, left, right, center. Crazy Eights, Dominoes, Trouble, Uno, Tic-Tac-Toe, Checkers, Apples to Apples, Jenga. Another vote for Checkers. Someone taught Spanish speakers how to play bull crap. Bunko, Mousetrap.
Okay.
Candyland.
Sounds great. So a lot of those games that we end up playing in those sessions, but I had to keep in mind what type of game. So a lot of the games that I picked were youth oriented. So a lot of the games were, like you said, Candyland. I tried to stay away from the word games. Those were really, and I tried it the first time and they really struggled because some of our English words don't always equate to the same. And so that was really a great game to be able to play. Connect 4 was a really easy, fun game to be able to play. Jenga, which I didn't realize was pretty international. So Jenga was really popular to be able to play. Dominoes, I was not someone who played dominoes, but actually as one of the students taught me how to play dominoes. And so we had pretty much all students at the same time playing dominoes. So it was really great to be able to play that because I didn't know how to play. So my pick of games really was centered around the idea of making sure everybody could participate. It didn't take long to teach because again, sometimes you don't have that matter of time, and visually attracting. Sometimes it makes it easier when you have some bright, fun colors to be able to do that. Again, my goal was also to help these learners about words verbally, on paper, on games. I think that was also a key for me when doing this program in their space, because they're all about the literacy, learning about words, taking that all in. And so that was a point of interest for me when I was doing this program with them. In addition, the conversation practice, by far, is so engaging to be able to engage these students and be part of this program, just to getting to know them, to be able to sit down and talk to them. I remember when we were playing Connect 4, this gentleman was so excited to learn this game. I mean, he took his phone out and he was like, oh my God, where did you even buy this game? I didn't know anything about this game. This will be a great game to, share with my student. A lot of the adult learners, sometimes don't have time to be able to engage with their students, especially when their students are growing up in America and socializing maybe more on computer games, a lot of the shooter fighter games. And so the board games seem to go at the wayside. And so parents don't always know. And so to be able to introduce this type of game, of board games or card games to them, it was really fascinating. And just the conversation practice, again, to be able to practice their English. So that was really fun. Everybody had a friendly competition. One thing I did find, it does not matter who you are. And so that was always fun when we were playing. That competition level was very apparent for those students, and it didn't matter if they were just learning. Once they got the hang of it, it was all about them trying to win each and every time. So I did that. That was quite funny for me. Coming in here, maybe not to play so hard, then I had to up my game and say, okay, I'm not gonna have you beat me either. So it was fun to be able to play a lot of these games when they actually knew how to play, and then it felt very competitive. Getting the experience, it's not very often things go unscripted when you're in a classroom. And so in the sense of, they have a very, I don't want to say structured, but they do, they kind of have a structured way of when they're teaching their English class. And so to kind of throw a wrench into the system and do something different on a day, especially since they were really coming off of their assessments the day that I came in, to bring the board games to them. This was giving them a whole different experience. To be able to play games in the classroom and have these conversations was very important, I thought. And so it's just a different way to think, to be able to practice your English, to see it in a different space was very important also. The engagement. This was a win for me. I really enjoyed doing this program. I'm going to revisit this program again. I didn't get the opportunity to do it this past year because I was out for medical reasons, but I want to revisit this program again because the engagement alone was amazing. Being that I have been at the library for a couple years, I do feel like when you have a connection of a person in a library, it makes the transition or the coming into the door a little bit more friendly because you see a face that you recognize. And so I think that is the importance of kind of doing the outreach and reaching out to, again, a population that may never come to the library because they're not familiar with the services, I think connects to that. And so I appreciate the time that was spent being able to engage everybody with the games, and I enjoyed it immensely. Oh, I'm sorry, my slides didn't play very nice with this. But so looking at the numbers, 2019 Hawkeye English language learners, we had about 100 students. So 2019 with a 2-day engagement with these students, we had about 55 students that first day and then 45 students the next day. Some of them were the same students, some weren't, but it was a fantastic time for everyone involved. I had about 2 or 3 coworkers who came between both days to kind of help out. But ultimately, we, again, brought the games to them in their space. I had about 16 different types of games, pretty easy to be able to engage. Not a lot of instruction was needed to be able to play. And they kind of just rotated from table to table to be able to set up. The beauty of this was the coordinators at Hawkeye Community College were so engaged in this also. They even brought their culinary students to be able to provide snacks for the students and for everybody who's at play. So they also got to be able to share in food for this event that day. So it was fantastic for the first time to be able to do it. So of course, COVID happened, and so doors were shut. Nothing happened in 2020. And so the re-engagement in 2021 was a lot less. They were still just trying to get up their program. They went through transition with the coordinator. I think she had just quit. And so they were really recovering from a huge loss. And so they had about only 7 students in their programs, and they were still trying to rebuild and bring the students back. So 1 class, 2 days, pretty much the same students. Energy was great still, even though we didn't have 100, the 7 students who partaked had a great time. We had a great time, enough for us to want to do it again. And so these are some of the photos from the 2019 event. Here you see me here playing Connect 4 with this gentleman, which was one of my favorite games I would play. Again, doesn't require a lot of teaching, but really fun. Jenga. For those students who've never played Jenga, it was always funny to see when it would fall, of course. And then Mancala is one game that I always bring out, especially during Black History Month. But a lot of students already knew how to play this game. This was a pretty friendly game, very engaging. The population also varied as far as what games they wanted to play or the games they're already familiar with. So we have a lot of students in this program who are Congolese from a lot of the African countries, a few from Asian countries, and very few from Spanish-spoken countries, but so it was more heavy on the African and Asian continents as far as students who participated in the English language program at this time. Let me see. So, I don't know if you can see that. Oops, excuse me. So what did this blossom into? Okay, so in the current time, we have a library collection now created at the satellite site at Hawkeye, which we did not have before. So it was really a great way to get the conversation started, like we should be here, you should see us as far as the public library. So it was a good starting off point. We also now have monthly board game nights. We have board games you can check out. So each month we have games. They do a lot of card games during our monthly board game nights. But we have a slew of board games that are able to be checked out at various levels that you can made available, obviously, with your library card that are for our public. So it was something that we kind of planned to seed with International Game Day. Board games at the table have now blossomed into year-round activity for everybody to be involved, for families, individuals. So it really is a wonderful event that has came into something even more that we didn't even know what to expect from. So those board games that have been sitting basically in the basement have now become part of our collection every day for people to be checked out. So some of the takeaways. One of the things I have learned with this is that you have to have an interested person who is dedicated to be able to do this. So, when I left, for medical leave, I didn't know if this was going to be something that was going to continue, making sure you have the contact, having the information, makes it helpful to be able to do a program of any size or any sort. So I was an interested person. I'm glad that we can continue to do this now for this year, but it does make it helpful to have a contact person who's just as interested. The person I originally spoke with to start this program off, she was so gung-ho about yes. And then when she left, she's like, well, sure that we can continue to do this. So she put on the calendar for next year before she left, because she's like, this is a needed program. We need to continue to do this. This is very helpful. So it takes two to tango, when you're collaborating, and it just makes it so easy when you have two people who are on board who are passionate. Established audience. I am big on not trying to recreate the wheel. So with this already established audience in mind or already available, I think that's very important. And so making sure that you have an audience who is willing and able, but the established audience makes it much easier for you not to have to recreate the wheel. So I think that's very important. One thing that I will say that was the drawback of doing this is, especially if you don't have someone who is there and passionate about recreating this, is the constant connection is needed. And what I mean by that is, if you, at the initial of my slide, I said that I wanted to go out to a part of the community that we don't always connect with or don't often come to the library. And so sometimes you need that constant connection to remind that population, those individuals, again, we are here, this is what we have to offer. Just remember that you can come and do this. And so sometimes the disconnect can happen. There are students who always have new students in their program who may not be familiar with the library. And so, us not being constantly present, sometimes we're the last to be remembered. And so I would say that for me, that is a big issue. Sometimes if we're not in people's faces or, present, they don't always think of us first. We're always the last to think of. And so having this program and having the board games at the table, at least for these, students, ELL students, I think it's very important to keep that connection with the library. So, any questions for me? I have more stories I can provide, but are there any questions for me at this time? Eunice?
Sorry, I had to get myself unmuted. One question so far, someone who has been trying to get games going on early out days and hasn't had much interest, what recommendations do you have for pulling people in?
Sure. The earlier the better. One thing my marketing team does here is making sure that the information is in all languages. So in our community, we have multiple languages as far as in the schools, and so we definitely make sure those are translated and to the schools at least 4 to 6 weeks prior, if not more. So that's key. Also, go out, if you can, go out to a certain classroom. Already established audience, make it invite only if you already know a certain audience to invite. I can't say that enough. If there's already an audience established, connect with them individually or into that classroom if you're wanting to do that. So that is key. I will say, like, the first year that I did International Game Day and it was more focused on the chess part, I didn't have very many people show up. It was like 2 or 3 people who played chess. Now, again, my focus was a little bit, I didn't know what to expect because I thought maybe those gentlemen who sit and play chess all day were going to come and help those younger students learn how to play. And that really didn't happen. So I didn't do a very good job as far as brainstorming what potentially could be the total audience. And so I think if I had done a better job as far as maybe advertising in our newspaper, because people actually still do our newspaper, it might have a different crowd who may have came in. But I'll say the second time that I did chess, I did it around our movie night, our youth movie night, because 1, I already knew the families were going to be there. 2, I knew the youth were going to be there. And so I actually brought in my craft and activity into the movie. So sometimes children get distracted or don't sit still. And so they had the opportunity to do the craft and activity within the movie time. And so it was kind of a win-win situation because, again, there was already established audience, wasn't trying to recreate the wheel. And so I had a good amount of 20 to 22 students or young people who were partaking on International Game Day at the same time while they were watching the movie. So I think, that is a big thing, just trying to find that audience and just honing on to what they're already doing to kind of bring them in. In addition to that, those school out days are really critical because parents are always looking for some type of activity to do with their families. And so I think that's also key. Again, making sure the information gets out early enough for parents to be aware of. But I know I have gotten a better response when there's no school than when there's school in or other activities they have to potentially combat with. Yeah.
Great idea. Also, again, tying it into an earlier presentation, somebody talked about they had local teachers using a trip to the library as a reward. So maybe if you can reach out to the teachers and say, hey, bring your class down, we'll do this for whatever reason. And then again, word of mouth could be helpful. Another question is whether you've noticed an increase in library usage and services for making these connections. And I know that can be kind of hard to track to an audience, but anecdotally, do you see any of those people using the library more than they did before?
I will say, going back to my point about the connection thing, sometimes it has to be a constant connection due to the fact that students change,
Right.
And so, but I will say when I first did in 2019, there was an increase of people's faces that I did see who were part of the gaming day, who came in and did use our services. They used the computer, they used the scanner. So it was, again, making connections, seeing those faces, knowing that you work here, knowing that it's, a place I can go and get services done. So 2019, definitely, I saw a huge increase. 2021, not so much. So we'll see what happens with doing it this year. I already made my contact with the new coordinator at Hawkeye, and she was, again, gung-ho about it. Like, she goes, whatever we need to do, let's make this happen. And so now I'm hoping to just be an established program that they will just pencil me in for November. I didn't even give those dates, but I'm sorry. November is usually the first week in November that International Game Week usually happens. And so no different than this year. So it'll be usually the 7th through the 13th. And I think it's about the same time for this year that International Game Week will happen. And so I'm hoping to put on their be on their calendar each and every year.
Okay, not another question, but a nice comment that getting students in the library is important, even if they aren't checking out material, just getting them in the building so that they become familiar with what's available to them is totally worth the effort.
It definitely is. I totally agree to that. And I think that should be in our constant mind when we're working at public libraries, make it accessible to as many people that we can possibly make it happen to. And so, and like I said, I'm a person who's always looking at the untapped population who does not come to the library. How do we get those individuals in here? Because they need our services just as much as everybody else. They just may not be aware that what we can offer them. And so I think that's pretty critical. And just keeping your, just keeping getting your hand on the pulse of what your community needs and who's not getting those services. And so, whatever you need to do, if that means you need to be at a farmer's market and sitting at a table and you're like, oh, I didn't know this crowd would even want to be at the library, find yourself in places that you never expected. And so when I did this International Game Day week program at, Hawkeye English language learners, that was totally what I was thinking. I was like, how can I make myself or the library the appearance to be in a place that they would not expect it to be or find us there? And so I think that's always should be one thing in our mind as librarians, be in places that they don't expect us to be.
Great. Any other questions for India? I think people are getting hungry.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. I will also just note that International Game Week so far have had over 10,000 libraries involved in this. And so when I first started, it was surprisingly, I thought I was the only person doing it, of course, like 5 libraries, but no, over the past 8 to 10 years that they've been in existence, 10,000 libraries are pretty much partaking in some type of game in their library. And so I think it's pretty impressive. You can register your library to be part of the group. They keep the stats as an organization. So it's pretty impressive to see and to find out what other libraries are doing. And so I would say take a look and check out their website, International Game Week, and just see what they've been involved with, what libraries have partaken in. And so just so you can, put your library on the spot as being part of the initiative. And I think it's a great initiative to get all libraries involved.
Okay, do you have the URL for their website? I'm seeing lots of different things, but not one definitely there. Although I do also see that ALA has an International Games Month, or at least they did in 2022.
So one thing they have, had the support of pretty much, all the library organizations to be able to do this. Let me pull this up real quick.
But just like David Lankus said this morning, Google is our friend. It has all kinds of uses for us in the library, including, what was that address?
It was. Apologize, I'm not as quick as I thought I was going to be able to bring it up. So Yes. So whoever put up the nationaltoday.com, I believe it may change for the 2023, but yes, I believe you can register at that time in, yep. So this was games. And the other one that you can also do is games.la.org. There is a registration option on this site too. So we have a new person who's over at our teen area. And so that we are just about to coordinate for this new year, working out ideas to do for the week. He is a big card game. He does a lot of he's the one that runs our board games monthly here, and he's big on the card games, which will be great. But I think it's a teaching lesson for me. I don't know anything about card games when it comes to beyond Uno, pretty much, and spades. That's pretty much my level of card games. So I'm pretty excited to see what that world will look like. But we're bringing back our Roblox, bring back our Minecraft activities. And so we are planning out our week fairly soon, which will be great. But I'm wanting to make this an every year event for our library. I think it's great to be able to do that.
Cool. One related question, not so much International Games Week, but just because you are circulating those games, somebody's thinking of expanding their board game collection and trying to find the best way to circulate games because the boxes fall apart so quickly. What advice do you have for handling that?
So a lot of our games were donated. A lot of them, I don't think we actually bought any of the game. I think they were all donated or again in our basement. And so we don't count the pieces. I know some libraries do count all their pieces when they come back in. It's kind of like whatever happens, happens. We do have a kind of like a Rubbermaid tie that goes around them that we do have on our display. And so we take the little Rubbermaid, I don't know what you call it, but it kind of holds the box together. And then we can allow them to check it out. We are in a position if we need to replace the box, we could replace the box, but it's pretty much as is once we check them out. Our clientele so far have been very polite and letting us know if there's pieces missing or if the box is raggedy, you know, we need to kind of tape it back together. So we really haven't had any problem when it comes to that. You know, the patrons have been really kind as far as letting us know if something's damaged with the material. So yeah. I'm surprised how successful they are, like especially Thursday and Friday nights. People really do come in. Yeah, they really do come in for board game. Especially if there's a snow day or they know
sure
coming, they will come get their books and they will check out a game. And so, and it's very, very nice to see because we do have a assortment of, again, card games, puzzles, you know, just board game, table game that they can play. So, and we have them on our second floor and our first floor. So we do have options for both, varying ages, levels, which is good. Yeah.
Okay, while people are thinking if they have any additional questions, I'll forward again to you the link for the main schedule so you can get back to that easily, because I know once you open a Zoom room, it has a tendency to, you lose your place on the website. And if this is your last session of the day, and it is best if you wait until you've done everything you're going to do, here is the form for the CE for the day. But we're still here, so if you have any other questions for India, now's your time to take advantage.
I appreciate you guys allowing me to join me today. I have really enjoyed working with Hawkeye and doing this activity and doing this program. I didn't know what to expect when I first started, but I'm glad I did the reach because it definitely has, again, blossom into a lot of other things that our library has now be able to offer our whole public, which is great. So yeah.
Oh, and it's a great activity for those ELL learners because, that's the biggest thing towards learning a new language is actually using it.
Yep.
So an opportunity to talk to other people in a relaxed way, I think is awesome.
I will also a little tip, which was surprising. I think someone mentioned this to me early on. You can reach out to a lot of the game places who create the games, and they will send you free games. Surprisingly, so you send them an email and say, what you're doing. Some of them will send you some games, and so I know that I did that, and I did get some games. They're like, we have some sample games you can play. And so they sent some games to me. And so if you reach out to, and actually just Google like game companies, small and large, they will respond back to you because they also want their product out there. But it was given me as a tip. And I think I reached out to about 3 or 4, and out of the 3 or 4, I had at least 2 who did send me games. So if you are just starting your collection, that will be another way you can get games also. Definitely.
Great idea. Yeah. The other thing is reaching out to those parents who have just recently become empty nesters and they want to clean some of that stuff out of their house.
Absolutely. Not just magazines and books, but a lot of them do have games. And so that's one way they can, pass it on too. So definitely. Another note, we received Magic, the Magic card game, which I'm not familiar with, but the gaming place, there's a game store here, and they received like 10,000 cards, and I kid you not, about 10,000 cards. And so they're like, do you guys want them? And so we took them. And so we're actually going to end up giving them away. So we're, cataloging them at this point. I'm going through if there's any repeats or whatever, but they came in stacks. But the store was like, you can have these if you want. So that's another option. You can also go, go to your local game store or somebody that's near and to see if they have games that they're willing to get rid of. But we have a whole collection of Magic cards for some, and there's a lot of people who are excited about this. Myself, not, but people are excited for the Magic card game. So yeah, definitely.
Excellent. And we love working with freebies.
Yes, we do. Definitely.
So any other questions, or is everybody ready to go off to lunch so they can get ready? Okay, I should donate my old MTG cards to the library. You can tell I'm not a gamer person, so I have no idea what MTG is.
Justine, tell us what, Magic
the Gathering. Okay, I have heard of that.
Yep. I appreciate that, informing me. That's great. So you'll be surprised what the library does not take.